Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham, and this is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Thanks for joining us. The Equity Club. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
The cost of racial inequity to this country brings the entire country down, holds the entire country back.
Giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity.
Advancing equity is not a one-year project. It's a generational commitment.
Watch your wallet. Well, you can't say the voters in 2020 weren't warned. Who can forget Kamala's goofy cartoon message?
So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests, oh, everyone should get the same amount. The problem with that, not everybody's starting out from the same place. Equitable treatment means we all end up at the same place.
Oh, I still can't believe that actually went out. Now, if we had an honest media, this would have been exposed for what it is on the spot. Just cartoonish socialist nonsense. Because when Joe and Kamala say equity, what they mean is justified discrimination, and not just based on race. Because when Joe and Kamala say equity, what they really mean is the creation of a new power dynamic that's disguised in very benevolent terms.
Equity on the issue of economic benefit and strength, our administration from the beginning made a commitment that we would increase minority and women-owned businesses getting federal contracts.
We're implementing a once-in-a-generation infrastructure law with equity at its center, and I mean that sincerely, with equity at its center.
He means that sincerely. Of course, the word equity is the antithesis of equality as guaranteed in our Constitution. Forcing outcomes based on phony, subjective sense of what's fair requires gratuitously punishing or rewarding Americans based on arbitrary categories. The same racial activists who are demanding reparations now are the same ones who influenced the president's executive order on equity that was aimed at advancing equity for all, including people of color and others who've been historically underserved, marginalized, and adversely affected by persistent poverty and inequality. Because advancing equity requires a systematic approach to embedding fairness in decision-making processes. Executive departments and agencies must recognize and work to redress inequities and their policies and programs. That's a mouthful. But ignore the noble language, because when they use the term racial equity, it's really not about helping African Americans. It's also not about equity. It's about helping advance the Democrats' agenda, which essentially is 21st century socialism. Their idea of equity would never include a scenario under which a government contract, for instance, would be awarded to a business headed by a conservative black man or woman over one headed by a white, reliable supporter of the left's, let's say, climate agenda. Because unless you fully buy into what they believe, you don't count as being traditionally from a underserved community. Remember how Justice Thomas, my old boss, is treated by the Smithsonian's African American Museum compared to, let's say, the billionaire entertainer Oprah Winfrey. Remember, it wasn't until a year after the museum opened that they added, under pressure, a small exhibit on Justice Thomas. Disgusting, but so predictable. The true aim of their equity agenda is to build a new powerful political machine where leftists get as many of the resources as possible. So this equity lie is seen in how the Biden team has downplayed the train derailment in East Palestine.
Lived here 12 years. How do you just get up and walk away from that because somebody else's negligence?
I've never been afraid to go home, and this is the first time I've ever been afraid to go home.
I can't take anything from my house. My daughter took a bag of clothes and it launched an asthma with her when she was trying to get them out to wash.
Now, these people are both underserved and potentially poisoned. So where's the equity there? These are mostly middle-class, working-class people. But leave it to Pete, who instead of visiting a community in need after a rail accident, would rather play politics.
We have heard way too many stories from generations past of infrastructure where you got a neighborhood, often a neighborhood of color, that finally sees the project come to them, but everyone in the hard hats on that project looking like, doing the good-paying jobs, don't look like they came from anywhere near the neighborhood.
Oh, what an idiot. Does that mean like those all white-owned townhouses in Georgetown or the mansions in Bel Air shouldn't have, what, Hispanic drywallers or painters? We can now only have projects run by people who look like the community? What a farce is that? Because what it ultimately leads to are established firms setting up subsidiaries with on the surface, a minority staff, so then they can go check the box and compete for that federal contract. The story is as old as time. Just as the left came to dominate university faculties and came to dominate Hollywood, they want to dominate all aspects of the federal government, and of course, comes with that, the lucrative government contracting. This is why they're so afraid of Trump's idea to reform the civil service. The truth is, look, the Democrats have essentially given up on our system. They think it's racist, they think it's evil, and they want to end it. But since socialism can never deliver better outcomes to people, certainly not better than the American system, the radicals need to rig things in their political favor. It's the only way. And they're kind of jealous of China with its social credit system, and they'd like to establish the equivalent of that here. A system that effectively rates you based on whether you're a member of a select group and whether you have certain attitudes or beliefs. So if you have the wrong friends, if you've donated to the wrong groups, if you go to the wrong church, you're going to be shut out of certain opportunities. This is what they want. They effectively did this in our universities and in Hollywood, and now they aim to do this in government, and by extension, in corporate America. So everything you hear about DEI, ESG, it's all the same. It's ditching any objective measure, whether it's like the AP courses in schools, the SATs, the ACTs, and even, yes, objective assessments via artificial intelligence. Yeah, you heard that right. As Americans struggle to buy like a dozen eggs or fill their gas tanks on their cars, don't worry, because the administration has a plan to eradicate algorithmic discrimination. That's a thing. Designers, developers, and deployers of automated systems should take proactive and continuous measures to protect individuals and communities from algorithmic discrimination and to use and design systems in an equitable way. This is anything to avoid what might even approach an objective assessment. And of course, business leaders are bowing to the equity gods as well.
Companies like ours must speak up as allies to the Black Lives Matter movement.
We were on record back in 2016 in supporting Black Lives Matter.
Business leaders cannot remain silent on important issues, whether it's racial equity, gender equity.
That's it. Now, this agenda is already at play in corporate boardrooms. And yes, if the left has its way, they'll eventually expand their equity club to include everything from the training and hiring of airline pilots to the training and hiring of heart surgeons. Scared yet? Well, you should be. Because their dream is to massively expand their power by embedding preferences based mostly on political beliefs and affiliations under the guise of addressing systemic injustices. Now, call it crony socialism. But let's face it, since everything they do ends up lowering our standard of living, it's the only possible way that they can really extend their political reach. You still think I'm exaggerating? Well, guess who's running the White House equity show? None other than Obama's left-hand woman, Susan Rice, who now runs Biden's domestic policy shop. Now, none of this should surprise us. After all, our figurehead president does zero to unite the country. He spends his time telling us how awful it is.
You know, folks, lynching is pure terror. They're crimes, trying to vote, trying to go to school, trying to own a business. Lynched for simply being black, nothing more. With white crowds, white families gathered to celebrate the spectacle, taking pictures of the bodies and mailing them as postcards. Hard to believe, but that's what was done. And some people still want to do that.
Now, no wonder China laughs at Antony Blinken when he urges them to take the moral high ground. They say something like, your own president says that you all want to lynch people over there. Why should we listen to you? Well, equity, just like all their buzzwords like diversity and inclusion or gender-affirming care or vaccine disinformation, they're just verbal clubs to use against dissenters to force you to give up your freedoms and your way of life for a fraudulent utopia. Don't fall for it. And that's The Angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.